Yo, what is up guys? Welcome to the video. I hope everybody's day is going great. Today we got a fun video. We're going to be talking about a few things, starting off with the top 10 Widowmakers in the Overwatch League. There's been a lot of mixed feedback after my video where I talked about the best Widowmaker in the world and I gave the title to Carpe. Many people were upset that I didn't mention Pine or say he was top 3. So today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 Widowmakers. Then secondly, we are going to be talking about ShaDowBurn, guys. There's been a lot of comments in the previous videos saying we want a ShaDowBurn video. Where could he go? What could he do? What does the future hold for ShaDowBurn in Season 2 of the Overwatch League? If you're new around here, do not forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want Overwatch content every single day, because that's what I do around here. Now let's go ahead and hop into it. Alright, so starting off with the top 10 Widowmakers in the Overwatch League. Of course, there's a lot of things to take in consideration with Widowmakers. So there's flashiness, which means how many highlight reel plays have you made? Are you really good at consistently getting triple kill, quadra kills? Things that you'll see Fleta and Pine do a lot. Then there's consistency, which is basically how many lows do you have? How often are you not doing good? And how often are you doing good? And if you are having lows, how often are you having them? And how often are you having those highs? So for example, somebody who is not good with consistency would be Birdring. He's had his peak where he looked like the best Widowmaker in the entire game. Then, out of nowhere, he's had his lows where he looked like one of the worst Widowmakers in the league. And he's had a lot of lows and they've lasted for a long period of time. So this will definitely hurt him in the consistency factor, and that's going to drop him down on this list. And that goes for every single Widowmaker. If you're really bad in one of these categories, that's going to drop you. It will hurt in the long run. Then there's overall effectiveness. Are you effective for your team? Now, effectiveness sometimes could be hard to judge. And to see how effective a Widowmaker is, you really got to keep your eye on them throughout the entire map, not just when they're hitting these cool shots, getting multi-kills, and showing up on the kill feed. It's more than that. You got to see throughout the entire map, what are they doing? You know, like if they're not getting a bunch of kills at certain points, where's the enemy team positioning? Because if their supports, say they're playing really passively behind walls, LOSing and stuff, that means that Widowmaker is forcing them to do that, and that means those supports aren't able to heal their tanks as well as they would like to, or their DPS players. That means the Widow is being super effective. There's no way for them to get a kill, but the supports are kind of half dead because they're not fully effective either. Then we look at their deaths. Are they dying a lot? If you die a lot and very fast in team fights, then you're not very effective. Now, if you're getting dove and you're surviving those dives, you're super effective because you're wasting the enemy's time. So effectiveness overall isn't getting kills, isn't looking like the best Widowmaker because you just hit a nutty shot. It's when you're not doing those things, when the camera isn't spectating that Widowmaker, what are they doing? And that's exactly why it's hard to judge how effective some Widowmakers are, because again, the client just isn't on them sometimes. Which is unfortunate too, because it's one of the most important things when you want to judge a Widowmaker. Then there's dueling. Are you really good at winning your Widowmaker v Widowmaker matches? This is one of the biggest ones. For example, Fleta, when you look at him from stage 1, stage 3, completely dominated his Widow 1v1s. Let's look at a map like Elios, the Runes one, where you're pretty much guaranteed to run into a 1v1 Widow battle. And if you don't win it, your team is likely going to lose. And we've seen that Seoul Dynasty is almost unstoppable on this map because Fleta will shut down any other Widowmaker in the league in that 1v1 battle. And that's just a specific scenario. There are so many points, so many maps where Widow duels are one of the most important things, and if you can't win your Widow duel, your team is going to end up losing. So along with all these other things, Widow duels are huge. And as I mentioned, if you are bad in one of these categories, or if you're just really good in a couple of them but not so good in the other two, you're not going to end up in the top 3, in the top 2. The best Widowmakers in the world, in my opinion, are the ones that are the most well-rounded, the ones that can do all of these things. So that is what I judge my list off, and now let's go ahead and do the countdown. This was really hard, guys, so you can't get mad at me for some of the ranks here. I mean, do it yourself. It gets pretty tough here in the middle-ish. Throughout the whole thing, it's really tough. So starting off at number 10, we have Soon from the Los Angeles Valiant. Soon has been a pretty good Widowmaker in the league. He has his times where he looks really good, but he also has his times where he's not so effective. He has spent a lot of time on Widowmaker throughout the season. He's in the top 5. Unfortunately for him, though, he dies a lot in the 1v1 battles, and overall he dies a lot, and he doesn't make up for them in kills like a player, say, Pine would. For that reason, Soon is going to be number 10. Now moving on to number 9, we have EQO. I want to put EQ a little bit higher because his stats are absolutely tremendous. He gets a ton of kills very quickly, doesn't die very much, and has a very good fight percent win rate when he is on the Widowmaker for his team. It's really hard to judge his hour and 25 minutes though, compared to somebody like Carpe, Lynx, or Surefour, who have almost 8+ hours. And because of this lack of time, we haven't really seen him, tested that much. It's not like he's been able to go up against Soon, Libero, Birdring, SayaPlayer, Surefour, Pine, Fleta. He hasn't gone up against all of them. As for most of these other players, we've seen them go up against each other. So we're going to keep EQ at number 9 for now, but there's a lot of potential for him to grow and move up. Moving on to number 8. I might get flack for this one, but it's going to be Lynxer. Now, Lynxer's really good at getting kills. He's one of the better Widows in the league when it comes to that. He's also a good 1v1 Widowmaker. He comes out pretty much even, maybe a little bit better than even, depending on who he's going against with the Widowmaker battle. What I don't like about Lynxer is that he has a really aggressive playstyle, and I think he overcommits with his positioning while trying to get kills. If he gets dove, he's dead. He puts himself in a position where it's easy for the enemy team to get to him, and he always dies because of this. Always. And he's typically one of the first dead on his team as well. Unlike, say, Carpe, who was very elusive and usually survives dives. Lynxer's very good. His aim is amazing, and he can pull off some highlight reel plays, but I think he has one of the biggest flaws that a Widowmaker could have, which is being in a position where you can die a lot. Because if you're just surviving and not getting kills, you're adding more pressure overall throughout the entire game than, say, if you got one triple kill and then you spend 3 minutes dead in a row. So Lynxer's going to stay at number 8. We're moving on to number 7. We have Surefour. Surefour moved up on this list a lot from the last stage. Throughout stage 1 and 2, he was an average Widowmaker, not one of the best, probably on the lower end. But in stage 3, he was really stepped up as a player. I've mentioned this in my videos. He does a good job in the 1v1 duels, a little bit better than Lynxer. But what gets me for him is that he dies a lot less than Lynxer. Their stats when it comes to kills are very similar, but when it comes to deaths, he stays alive a lot more. He doesn't really put himself in like that suicidal position to get highlight reel plays like Lynxer does or even Pine does. He's patient and it pays off. The kills come to him when he needs them, and he's always putting pressure on the map. So that is why Surefour is sitting at number 7 and above Lynxer. Now moving on to number 6, we have Birdring. Birdring slipped a lot on this list the past 2 stages. The only reason he is sitting at number 6 is because he had an incredible stage 1, and in my opinion was the best Widowmaker in the league during stage 1. But during stage 2 and 3, he has been very inconsistent. He loses a lot of his 1v1 duels. He's not making those flashy plays like he used to. The only thing that he's got going for him in stage 2 and 3 is that he hasn't died too much, so he's still able to put pressure on the map by surviving, but it's just not enough because he has 0 kill pressure, and when he goes to those duels, he dies. So for that reason, Birdring is number 6. Now moving on to number 5, we have SayaPlayer. Now if we were just judging this off of who is the best Widowmaker right now in the league, he would probably be top 3. But I can't put him that high because he's only played for 1 stage. It's kind of a similar situation to EQO. SayaPlayer does have more time than EQO, which is why he is higher, but because he has a lack of time compared to like Carpe, Lynxer, who have triple his time, I feel it would be unfair to the players who have been super consistent throughout the entire season to put him above them. But he is absolutely incredible. He makes those flashy plays. He wins those duels. He has good positioning. He only dies when his team loses team fights because his team just isn't that good. Sorry, Florida man, but it's true. SayaPlayer is great, and he has a lot of potential to move up on this list during stage 4. Now moving on to number 4, we have Pine. This is the player that everybody was upset that I didn't put in my top 3 or say he was the best Widow. And I feel like you guys might have affected how high I put him on this list. I could maybe see him sitting at 5 or 6 with SayaPlayer above him because Pine has a lot of flaws in his Widowmaker play. And I've mentioned those in my previous videos. He dies so much. He dies too much. If I'm being honest, Pine, he goes for these superhero plays and it costs him in the end. Now, a lot of the times it doesn't matter because his team is so good and they can still win that team fight. But Pine tries to be too flashy too much. He constantly overextends and gets caught out in position. He overextends a lot more than any other Widowmaker in the league. Sure, he does win his duel sometimes, but it's not like he is the best Widowmaker dueler in the league. Not even in like the top 3 or 4. I feel like a lot of you guys who think Pine is the best Widowmaker in the league are a bit misguided. Yes, he is so good at making those flashy plays. He is probably the best at it along with Fleta. But again, he puts himself in a position where he can make those flashy plays, and most of the time it ends up not paying off. But when it does pay off, the spectators and the people controlling who you watch and all the plays you see make sure that you guys see Pine hit that incredible 3K, 4K, whatever he just got. And at the end of the day, it just really does not help the fact that he is on New York Excelsior, the best team in the league by far. If you traded spots with Saya Player and Pine, I guarantee you guys we would see just as many sick plays from Saya Player, maybe even more, and he would win a lot more duels and die a lot less because his playstyle is just superior. Now, I don't know if Pine is purposely putting himself in those overextending positions all the time so he could try to make plays. He could be, but if he was doing that, at the end of the day, it kind of hurts his team because he dies too much and is dead and non-effective. And all the time he spends dead makes him more ineffective than a lot of the other Widowmakers in the league. Now, I'm not trying to bash Pine. I put him at number 4, guys. That's really good. And I'd say that's pretty generous considering how many flaws he has. When ShaDowBurn plays Widow over Pine, they win more. ShaDowBurn gets less kills than Pine. ShaDowBurn gets a little less kills than Pine, but he also dies way less. His KD is higher, and they win more when he is on it. But ShaDowBurn is nowhere near as good as Pine at making those flashy plays and just having incredible aim overall. Also for SBB, I kind of wanted to put him on this list, but I don't know, I didn't. I probably should have. At the end of the day, he probably is a little bit better than maybe Soon, EQO, some of those other guys I listed. But I decided not to since our next player is Libero at number 3, and we have Pine here at number 4. I don't want to put 3 players from NYXL. So that's why Pine is number 4. Now let's move on to number 3. We have Libero. Now, Libero is the one that I am willing to accept some criticism on, or, maybe agree. He shouldn't be 3, but he does deserve to be really high on this list. He hasn't played Widowmaker as much as a lot of these other players. He even has less time on it than Saya Player. He does have more than EQO though, and the times we have seen Libero on Widowmaker are just ridiculous. I find it absolutely mind-blowing that a guy who is so flexible and takes on so many heroes and roles for his team can randomly flex to the Widowmaker and outduel the best Widowmakers in the league in just absolutely crazy fashion. We've seen amazing flashy plays from him in the finals of Stage 2. As I said, we've seen him outduel the best of the best. He also hardly ever dies. The only category he lacks in is getting a lot of kills. But this comes down to effectiveness again. He is extremely effective. He stays alive throughout the entire fight, and he forces the enemy team to either jump him, where he will end up surviving because he's playing in a really good position, or will force the enemy team to just play passive and not peek where he is holding, and therefore the players on the enemy team become ineffective. Also, this weird positioning he has is like really unique, and I think it catches other Widowmakers off guard, and I think that's why he has such an easy time in those 1v1 Widow battles that you wouldn't expect him to be winning against players like Fleda and Carpe out of nowhere. And that's the biggest reason I have him at number 3. He is good in almost every single category, which means he is one of the most well-rounded Widowmakers in the league. And as I said, I want well-rounded, not somebody who just gets flashy kills or somebody that never dies. I would love to see him get like 3 or 4 more hours on Widowmaker and then compare him again. But let me know what you guys think about Libero being this high. You probably won't like it. Oh well. Let's move on to number 2. We have Fleda. Fleda is definitely number 1 or number 2 in the flashiest Widowmaker, and he is definitely number 1 and number 2 in the best dueler. We've seen him destroy every Widowmaker in the league at one point or another, and we've also seen him get the best highlights out of any other player in the league too. The main thing that hurts Fleda is consistency. Similar to Birdring, he had a really bad low in Stage 2. Fortunately for him though, he has been able to gain traction back during Stage 3 and has looked like the best Widowmaker in the world again. But that hiccup in Stage 2 definitely costed him the number 1 spot. Regardless though, number 1 or number 2, he is simply amazing. He's very good at all of the categories, one of the most well-rounded in the league, and that is why he is sitting at number 2. Now let's move on to number 1, the best Widowmaker in the league in my opinion, is Carpe. Throughout the entire season, Carpe hasn't been the flashiest, he hasn't been the guy that gets the most kills, but he is the most well-rounded, he is the most consistent, he never dies, he always puts himself in a position where the other team is scared to fight him, because they know if they do, they're going to end up wasting their time, because he hardly ever dies. Now, I said he wasn't the flashiest, but he's still really flashy, and he gets a lot of kills. Well, list not dying, which is super important. He overall is the most effective. He's good at those duels, and that's what makes him the best. He didn't suffer from inconsistency in any of the stages. He was always performing at a good level, and he shows up in the big matches. You got to give number 1 to Carpe. It's honestly super hard to criticize Carpe's Widowmaker. The way he plays is super unique, and I don't think anybody in the league has been able to replicate that. Maybe a little bit of Saya Player during Stage 3. Unfortunately for him, though, it's hard to see because his team isn't that good. But yeah, that's why Carpe is my number 1, guys. Let me know what you think about this list down below, and let's move on to the next topic, which is the Philadelphia Fusion and ShaDowBurn. What is exactly going on? Why do the Philadelphia Fusion think it is better to run EQO and keep ShaDowBurn on the bench? Well, I'm going to answer this question for you. And I know I've answered it a lot before, but I still get it a ton. And you guys have been asking for me to talk about ShaDowBurn a bit. So a big reason why ShaDowBurn is not being played comes down to a few things. Number one, EQO is just way more flexible. Yes, ShaDowBurn is an amazing Genji, and we've seen him do really well in the Pharah, but he cannot compare to EQO's flexibility. EQO can play Genji and Pharah pretty much just as good, and then he can also play those hit scan heroes, Widowmaker at a good level, he can play McCree, he can play Soldier, Junkrat, I can keep going on and on. He's so good at every DPS hero. And he's not just good at DPS heroes, he plays off tanks. We've seen them on King's Row, he'll run the Roadhog, do very well. We've seen them on Oasis rounds, he'll run the Diva and do very well. So EQO's flexibility adds so much more of a threat to the Philadelphia Fusion's roster than ShaDowBurn can. Now, secondly, which is really big, is that the Philadelphia Fusion's coaching staff has said this multiple times. They just believe, they don't believe, they know that EQO's teamwork and communication is better than ShaDowBurn's. They say it all the time. He works better with the team. He communicates more. He's more vocal. And if you tie in these two things with that EQO is at a similar skill level to ShaDowBurn on his best heroes, it would make zero sense to run ShaDowBurn over EQO. And that's not a knock at ShaDowBurn at all, guys. As I said, his Pharah and Genji are absolutely amazing. I thought he was the best Pharah in Stage 1, and his Genji, we've seen him do some of the most amazing things ever. But he just doesn't fit in here for the Philadelphia Fusion. So what does he do from here? Well, it depends. If he wants to be a starter in this league, then he's going to look to get traded for Season 2. Because as long as EQO is here, he's not going to start. He won't. So I think his best bet, as I mentioned yesterday for Effect, would be to join an expansion team. That would be ShaDowBurn's best option. He'll get paid a ton of money. He'll probably be involved in a lot of the picking the team process, stuff like that, since he has a really good reputation. He could also come together with a lot of good players who aren't happy with their teams, like Effect. Now, if he doesn't want to do this and he wants to join an already established team, he could possibly go and join the Dallas Fuel. They need a projectile player. He could join the Florida Mayhem, team up with Saya player. That would be a really good duo with him on projectile, Saya player on hit scan. There are some existing teams he could join, but his best option and best bet to getting on a new team would be an expansion roster. Who knows though, ShaDowBurn could enjoy being a bench player, I'm not too sure. He probably helps the team out a lot still, doing inner scrims, analytical work, player coaching, anything like that. At the end of the day, I'm sure he's still helping. If I were him though, I would probably want to start in the league. Obviously, ShaDowBurn is a starter caliber player. He probably thinks that too. So if I had to guess, guys, I would say ShaDowBurn will be on a new team next season. And that's going to be it for this video. Let me know down below if you guys agree or disagree about this. Leave a comment, drop a like, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this type of content, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.